I'm Richard Randall, and welcome back to The Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. Barb Schlinker is the Real Estate Voice, Schlinker. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or to sell real estate with Barb Schlinker. She's the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. That's the name and the guarantee. Barb, many home sellers fear the inspection. Many people think most buyers want to purchase their home as is. So, what are some of the high cost home inspection traps that home sellers need to know about before even putting their home up for sale?
Well, I think what happens a lot is most home sellers assume that the buyers are going to take their home as is. My house is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. I've never had any problems. And so they assume that that part's going to go just fine, but it's actually the inspector's job to find defects. And then the buyer's agents think it's their job to ask for stuff. So we get into these negotiating battles after we're under contract. Now, the contract does say that the home is sold as is, where is, with all its faults, but they have a right to inspect. However, what they do is they'll actually inspect and then they'll come and ask for stuff. Sometimes they ask for a lot of stuff. Sometimes they ask for things that are not defective. Sometimes they terminate, which is probably the biggest fear of a home seller, is why did they bail out of the contract based on the inspector's opinion. I recently had one where I believe the inspector damaged the home. He did a well test. The well test came up positive for bacteria. There's a very specific way you have to test a well for bacteria. You have to make sure that you pull the little screen off the faucet. You have to run the water for a certain amount of time. You have to use a clean wipe to clean off the faucet before you take the sample. And if you don't do those things, it's going to show positive for bacteria. Bacteria will come from the faucet into the water sample. And then you're asking the seller to do something like shock the well with bleach, which is not a good thing. But there may be nothing wrong with the well. That same inspector recently ran the well dry. He ran the water so long that he pulled all the water out of the well tank, sucked up sand through the plumbing and into the tub.
Oh gosh.
Wouldn't you be mad if that was your house?
I would be so angry.
I was furious. I'm like, that's unacceptable. And then they're going, oh, there's too much wrong with this house for terminating. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to sit on your earnest money until we find out what's going on with this well, because I know you damaged that. And whenever you just like an engine has to have oil, a pump has to have water running through it. And if you run it dry or pour sand material through a pump, it's going to damage it. And that's what this guy did. I'm like, oh my God. I see these kind of things all the time. I've had some crazy things happen on inspection. I had one inspector, they're not supposed to take apart the house. This inspector disassembled the pedestal sink and created a leak. They're not supposed to do that. I had one rip the toilet off the floor to check the sewer line and damage the vinyl. I had one stick his foot through the ceiling of the drywall because he stepped in the wrong spot. And there's no license to be an inspector in the state of Colorado. It's kind of the Wild West for inspections. So it's one of those things that gets my dander up every time they happen. I know they have to do an inspection. Okay. I know they're going to find some things that might be deferred maintenance, like clean and service the furnace. And probably the most common things we run into on inspection are hail damage on the roofs. Furnace needs clean and service. Sometimes water heaters either are not to code or they've got some problems. So really the sellers are kind of afraid. Their fear is very real. Sellers worry about building code issues. So that's the assumption is that, okay, if my house is built in 85 and the current code is I have to have a smoke detector in every single bedroom, and I have to have one of those ground fault interrupter electrical plugs in every single place where there's water. That's the current code, but that wasn't the code in 1985. Or if a homeowner decided to put their own water heater in, there's no permit required. But it's just one of those kind of things where you have to, the inspector will identify things that kind of reflect current building code, but it's not required. I remember the very first listing I ever had with this was this cute couple down in Fountain. They were in a big 2-story. It was too much house for their physical. They were an older couple. They needed to be out of a 2-story and into a ranch, basically. And so we got it under contract, and the back enclosed patio sunroom, really cute room. It had a swing in it, but it was not current code. So we had Regional Building look at it. Regional Building came out and said, yeah, to meet code, you have to tear the whole thing down.
Oh,
And the buyer's like, no, you're not doing that. I want this room. So stop it, leave it alone. So you don't have to fix everything just because it's not to code. If it's broken or unsafe, that's a different story. So there are times that buyers will come up and ask for unreasonable things. And in most cases, you don't have to upgrade the home to satisfy the buyer's needs. And there are probably 33 different physical problems that could come under scrutiny. The biggest ticket items definitely are roof, furnace, water heater, sewer line. Those are the things that probably get the most issue, plus electrical panels. So we might have talked about this before, Richard, but in a lot of the homes in this market, they put in a brand of electrical panel called Federal Pacific, that if you read what happens online with those panels is sometimes when the circuit gets overloaded, the circuit doesn't pop and it causes fires. And so it'll terrify you if you go and read about the Federal Pacific panels online. So I would say probably 99% of the time when you have your inspection, the buyer is going to ask for a replacement. That's a $2,000 to $3,000 repair. Sewer lines, most people don't check their sewer line unless they have a backup. But many times those come up on inspection. Air conditioning, furnace, having the furnace serviced, having the water heater checked. We talked about the electrical part. And plumbing is pretty simple. It's a minor thing, but you want to make sure all the plumbing is functioning and not leaking. Appliances. So there are certain appliances that are considered personal property, but the appliances that are considered built-in would be a stove, a built-in microwave, a dishwasher, a disposal. So they will ask those to be fixed if they are broken. However, if you're including a refrigerator, washer, and dryer, those are considered personal property. An appraiser only gives you $150 of value for each of those, even though even a used appliance of those things cost more. So typically what I'll ask my sellers to do is offer those as a courtesy to the buyer as is, and don't make any repairs on those, on refrigerator, washer, dryer, because it's really just a gift. It's a gift to them. They can go buy their own appliances. And ice makers on refrigerators, they break all the time. Some more things that come up, of course, sewer lines really a problem, and that can be super expensive. Septic systems. Roof issue is very, very common around here because there's so much composite shingle roof that's getting hit by hail. And then another thing interesting about roofs is if they have a solar system, first of all, the solar has to be paid off through the closing. And if it's stuck up on the roof, it has to be removed prior to the roof replacement. And the roofers won't do that. You'll have to bring in the solar company to take the solar system off, then replace the roof, and then bring the solar company back to put the solar system back on. So those systems actually cost a lot more whenever you have to replace a roof. So those kind of things can come up. So it's really good to do like a pre-inspection. We include that with our awesome certified homes, a pre-inspection for the seller, so they know if there's any defects that they have to deal with. And basically the lender doesn't care that much about systems as long as there's nothing unsafe. And typically appraisers don't care that much. They want to focus on whether or not the home meets the loan guidelines. They're focused on safety, broken windows, well covers, that kind of stuff, peeling paint. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're interested in selling your home, you want to give Barb a call. It's your biggest investment, more than likely in your entire life. You want it in good hands. And Barb is good hands. 719-301-3900. We're talking about 11 high-cost home inspection traps. Barb, what are some of the other home inspection issues that have come up over the course of the couple decades that you've been selling here in Southern Colorado? Selling and buying, I should say.
Well, decks for sure come up quite a bit. Pretty much the inspectors will look at those because we're in a high elevation, dry climate. Wood really takes a beating in this climate, so a lot of people are very interested in whether or not you have wood rot, on the floor joists and that kind of thing. Peeling paint is an issue on decks, so those come up quite often. And mostly those can be repaired. It's not a big deal. But sometimes buyers ask for even concrete to be repaired, particularly if there is a trip hazard involved. Like I had one home seller that the ground in the walkways leading up to the front porch had fractured over time, and the sidewalk had some trip hazards, and it was a little crooked. But anyway, they brought in a company that does what they call mud jacking, which they basically punch a hole in the concrete and pump it up and level out the concrete so it's all one level. And that's not very expensive. It's far less expensive than replacing the concrete for sure. And then, of course, a roof, when that comes up, you want to talk to your insurance company ahead of time before you go on the market and find out what your deductible is on the roof. Many of these insurance companies have changed the deductible not to 1,000 or 2,000, but for 10% or 1% of the home value, which in this market could range from $4,000 to $10,000 as a deductible. So you really want to make sure you know going in before you sell your home. And of course, we talked about wells. If the buyer's getting a VA loan, they're going to require a bacteria test. And then the rest of the stuff is kind of cosmetic. Like if there's broken seals on the window, visually they don't look good. It's an inexpensive thing to repair, but it's not really required. And then there's the surprises, like when the buyers come in and they ask for upgrades, and you don't have to upgrade it, okay? They're going to ask for stuff, and sometimes it's the agents driving this. It's not necessarily the buyer. The agent will say, oh, ask for it, maybe we'll get it. That's what they like to do. But at the end of the day, it has to be, what should be resolved through the inspection are broken things, anything that's in disrepair. It's not the buyer's chance to get a laundry list of new things. And with our certified awesome pre-approved homes, we also do a home warranty so that the buyer has a warm fuzzy going into a year after closing, that if any major system fails, they will actually have that covered by the home warranty. So we're offering a free report where you can download some detailed information from our website. It's called the 11 Things That You Need to Know to Pass Your Home Inspection. You can get it for free by going to barbhasthebuyers.com or give us a call at 719-301-3900. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, just call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. A short break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the things that you need to know when it comes to buying or selling a home, or that you need to pass on perhaps to your kids, your grandkids, or the folks you work with. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.